Well, hello again. Welcome back. And I'm back. I'm going to make two short videos today. And here's my nice little scenery for today. So, anyway, um, the first, sorry. Oh, my throat's a little funny today. Okay, well, the first video, this is one of the ones that hit me. So I thought, yes, I'm going to do that video. And then after that, I had another one. So, okay, the topic today is church cliques. So basically, all kinds of issues with fellowship and finding fellowship in the church. Now, of course, institutional church, that is. I'm not really referring to the church. I'm not really referring to home fellowships because that's where usually is better. So I'm not really talking about that. But there's overlap because, of course, if you look for a good biblical institutional church, if people might think, well, if there is such a thing, yeah, and it depends. I mean, people try to put everything into one box all the time, and there are always going to be exceptions to this or that. So most of the time, okay, see, there's an exception, not all the time, but okay, so. Um, but when you go to these, let's say you're looking for one and you find one and it's pretty good, and there'll be, let's say, some true Christians who are part of the church, then the real church, and some that are not part of the real church because they're not true Christians. You can go in any building you want to, it won't make you a Christian, and that's part of the confusion is they think it does, and it doesn't. They think they were baptized as a baby, but that won't do it for you either. I mean, I've been over all that, down that list, up and down that list enough times. That's not the topic of this video. But you'll find a mixed bag over there in these places, is the thing. Um, so there are all kinds of issues with fellowship anyway. One of the main problems is, and I mention this a lot, we're living in the time of the apostasy, the great apostasy. So that's going to make it very hard to find a biblical church. This is aside from the whole 501c3 thing, which that actually got really bad around the year 2000. Also, they changed all their rules that makes it a state church, really. So you have that. Not everybody plays by those rules, but still you signed up for something. So there are churches that are not under that. So it depends, it depends. But if, and then you have all the other issues, again, I talked about that. But let's just, for the sake of this, talk about finding one that's okay and trying to go there. That's hard enough alone just because of the time we're in. I mean, everybody has catered to the apostasy. And if you find one that hasn't, that is wonderful because it's so hard now. And they have referred to true Christians like me as the remnant because of this. It's that hard to find any kind of true Christian fellowship. And, then you have all the issues of, and I'm not going to make this video about doctrine. There are all kinds of doctrinal differences, and some of them we do need to divide over, and others not so much. So it depends. But that's a separate bag of items to discuss that I already discussed in other videos. So I made so many videos now, I can say this all the time. Go see that video number, 361 or whatever. Anyway, um, so, but with just people who get it, with all this stuff, just finding that is so hard. And if you go to these places thinking, well, maybe I'll find someone. You know how that is, especially if you're alone, your family has passed away, and you could use some company, especially around the holidays, right? So you just try, and that one, maybe this one, maybe it looks okay, maybe it's okay, maybe I'll find somebody else. It happens. New Christians don't know all this, so they just go and they try, and you might run into somebody, and you might even be able to help them in different ways that way. So there's nothing wrong with trying to do that, but you think maybe I'll find someone, and it has happened. It can be, it's rare, but it can happen. What I find so often is that sooner or later, and it's usually sooner, if you find a group of people that kind of will include you, and I'll get to the other items in a bit here, but then what happens is there's always something that comes up because of the apostasy, and they don't see it, and they will bring these things up. Oh, it could be the latest book by so and so, or the latest movie series by this and that film company, and some other thing, a book or a movie or some other item that they're referring to, that's a channel of this stuff, and it's the latest craze that everybody's talking about, and a song or something that's come out, and it's all the rage, right? And there you are. This has happened so many times. You're just there, jaw drops, eyes pop out like the deer in the headlights. Okay, that's not good. So you gently say something like, well, did you know that that book actually has such and such in it, and it promotes this and that, and it's either something that's unbiblical, it's something of the occult, it's something promoting a sin, maybe something, just something that's not, it's even anti God, and the movie, it's produced by a company that is ecumenical with this and that, and cult, and compromises with this and that. It's just something, and you just mention it, you just bring it up. And that's the thing. I mean, if you're really a true Christian, that's your job. I mean, you can't run around and tap everybody on the shoulder that you possibly can meet ever in your life. If, like, there may be 100 people there that day, you won't be able to get to everybody or on your path. But if it comes up in a circle where you're in the conversation, yeah, I mean, there's leeway. It depends on the situation too. If there are different things happening, but there, it's complicated. But let's say it's a situation, a normal situation, and you just so you really feel pushed to say something, right? So you say something, and you bring it up that, yeah, well, and you're not beating them over the head, you're not browbeating anybody, you're just mentioning it in a nice way, out of concern, because that's our job, in this situation. So whatever it is, you warn people. So you warn them. That's all you're doing. And you're saying it in that way. Well, this has such and such in it, and that's why I don't ascribe to it. I don't read it, and I don't recommend it for that reason. And you're not even telling them, like, you shouldn't read this book. They shouldn't, but you can't tell them what to do, but all you can do is highlight the danger and kind of warn about it. That's it. So you just say it in a way like, yeah, I don't uh, touch that or whatever because of this and that. I don't have anything to do with this because of that, and that kind of thing. And that alone is enough. Their heads will explode. They will lose their minds. They will fly off the handle. They'll get all offended, fly every which way through the room. And it was, and, um, and it's all you had to do was say something. I mean, this has happened to me so many times that I just like gave up. I did. It's like, let them have it then. If that's what they want so badly, let them have their uh, abominations. Let them have them. Whatever. I tried. But anyway, that's what happens, and it never fails. It always. This stuff is so prevalent. It never fails. Sure enough, it always comes up. Something will come up. You can count on it. I mean, it's just unavoidable now. So that alone is the main reason why it's so hard to find true Christian fellowship now. I mean, they love their items of the apostasy. They will not divorce from them, but they will divorce from us. And that's just how this road goes. And that's okay. But that's one of the reasons why it's so hard. Okay, that's the main reason. But you can tell there's an unhealthy attachment with that, just the way they react when you bring this up. It's like, there's a spiritual influence that's taken a hold of them, and that's why they react that way. They lash out and they can't let go of this thing. That's what happens when people get involved in the occult. So it's that kind of thing, and that's why the reaction is that hostile. Anyway, so that's it about that issue. But then we have these other issues. Okay, so finding a church, finding people in the church that you can actually fellowship with is the first thing. Then you have, beyond that, once you get past all that, you have the issue of church cliques. I have seen that, everywhere. And, you also have, before I get to that, the issue of churches that divide by race. And I don't mean necessarily within it itself. There's that. But then you have whole churches that are based on just that one race. If you're not of that race, good luck, right? So there's that. That can be any race, okay? I'm not saying anyone in particular does this more. I've seen it with all of them. There is the exceptional thing of language. Sometimes, you get people here from all over the world, and then, they form a church in their language because they're not that familiar with English, so they'll have their little subgroup that the pastor speaks that language and he's from there, and okay, I mean, that's okay, as long as it really is just that. And I know there's some cultural things, but if they get to the point where they don't want to go to a church that's, once they know the language, that's just English speaking because they're kind of so cliquish about it, then that's a problem. Anyway, then you have issues with gender, believe it or not. Yeah. This is another problem that's come in with all that Hebrew stuff, because that's the way it was back then. Different reasons they separated the men and the women in these synagogues, but I don't know. I don't know the background on why that was, but anyway, with the church, we don't do that. We're not supposed to do that. And I'll get to some Bible verses later, but um, we're not supposed to do that. But once that came in, you had these messianic congregations popping up, and they were implementing all these same things that the synagogues would do. They'd put a dividing wall between the men and the women, and other things that were going back under, the old religion. So, like, you guys are going the wrong way. Hello, alert, So, anyway, there's that. But even without that, in churches today, you do see so much, just a typical institutional church, you see so much segregation by gender, you know. Um, Not in the main service, but there's a men's group and there's a women's group for just about everything under the sun. It's the ladies, it's the men's. Bathrooms, fine, okay, but this is everything, and that's not how it was meant to be. If ladies have issues they want to talk about that they don't want the men to know about, and vice versa. I mean, they can just have a separate little discussion at the side somewhere, but you really don't need to make a whole separate meeting group over these things. It's just a little much. And anyway, I'll get to the Bible verse on that. But all right, another issue they will divide over, socially speaking, is the whole money thing. The rich versus the poor, and they'll exclude you if you're not as rich as them, that kind of thing, because God forbid you should need some help one day, and they're actually in a church setting that says you're supposed to help the poor in need. So it kind of causes a problem for them, right? So then they want to divide with you. So there's that. In some churches, you're not even welcome, and it's kind of obvious, but you get all kinds of things about the money, even if it's not a heretical prosperity gospel place. That sure they'll be like that, but even if it's just a regular run-of-the-mill type of church, there's a lot of segregation based on money, and it's kind of the unspoken rule thing. It just happens, and they don't talk about it, but it happens. So the Bible speaks against that. So I'll get to that. But so there are those issues in pretty much every church. Typical any church, really, you'll find this. And then you have church cliques, and this is where they'll form little cliques, and some of it is based on that kind of thing, and some of it isn't. And it's one thing if, let's say, there just so happen to be a group of people there who have a certain hobby in common, and they just kind of gravitate together because of that. I'm not saying that's bad, but when you get a church that has so many little cliques, it feels like high school. Something's wrong. They form their little cliques, and they will be very exclusive that way to you for some reason. And I'm not talking about, I mean, of course, somebody needs to have repented from their sin and, be on the road of sanctification. So, assuming that's all the case, they have no reason then to exclude you, but they will for one reason or another. I've seen it in churches where, let's say, people have certain disabilities, they'll exclude them. You're struggling financially, they'll exclude you then. Or it's just age differences, and they'll exclude people that way. I mean, the professionals will have their little clique, and they'll exclude everybody else. and it's not right, of course. And then they even encourage this kind of thing, like they'll have separate clubs for, oh, you're young and you're married and your career, college and career. Okay, you go to that clique, right? That group. You're young and you're single and you're probably looking for a spouse. You go to that clique. Um, you know, and so on. And they practically encourage that kind of thing. Now, if you're single and you're looking for a spouse, they should have something for you, honestly. But like, it's just that everything is formulated around a clique. This club, that club. Oh, you're young and you're married and you have kids. Okay, you go to that group. You're over 50, you go to this group, endlessly. And again, I'm not saying you can't ever associate with people in your age group. Yes, you have things in common and you get along in different ways. Fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, period. But it's just they don't encourage interconnection in general in the church as a whole. They don't have many meetings for that kind of thing, and if any, and people naturally gravitate this way to the cliques. So it doesn't need much encouraging; it needs discouraging. But you'll find this with the cliques. Um, Many people have said that a lot of churches are nothing more than social clubs, and if you don't fit that criteria, then you're not welcome there. And they won't tell you that, but you'll feel it. They won't include you in this way and they won't include you in that way. And then they'll gossip about you. They'll whisper behind your back. They'll point at you, even something, or they'll just be outright rude in different ways. So just all kinds of things like that they'll do. And so that's what I've seen. And I mean, I have drifted through a lot of churches, and I'm a pretty average person, so there wasn't anything like that to do this over in my case, but it always happened with that whole apostasy thing. So, anyway, um, then about rudeness, oh my goodness. I mean, I have a couple of examples of things that happened at the latest adventure. I will share them. So, just for the example, I don't mention names, but it's just the examples. So, this one church I went to, and I had been there on and off. I couldn't go regularly. I was taking care of somebody, and it's a long story, but I couldn't go regularly. But I tried to go at holidays more and just kind of make it work out at least then, because I like to do that for especially holidays. So I had been in and out of there. I had talked to some people. I didn't establish any big connections, but I recognized them if I would run into them somewhere. Then a situation came up and I was able to go a little more often. So I was doing that, and they had a little fellowship time afterwards. It was more one of these more old fashioned places, and they did things more the way it used to be, which I like. They had a fellowship time afterwards with desserts and coffee, and they encouraged people, to fellowship. So there was a whole room in the back for that next to the kitchen. And so every single time I had been there, I had done this. I had gone in there after the service and sat down and enjoyed some refreshments and tried to talk to people. And usually there was someone to talk to. I would have a conversation with someone. Many times the next time I was there, it would be a different crowd. People were gone, new people were there for some reason. So I didn't many times see the same people again. But there were some people that were steady, like maybe, well, for whatever reason, they were like there the whole time. And okay, so then when I started going there again, I did the same thing. I went into the fellowship hall room, whatever, after the service, did the same thing I always did. No exceptions. Every single time I did that. And I stayed a good 20 minutes. I mean, you know, and either I talked to somebody or not. And then at that time, there were less people like really sitting with me and having a conversation. And, it was more like across a large table, maybe at the other end would be someone who said a few words. And it was okay. I mean, I thought, well, it is what it is. Um, so this had happened like for about a month. And then they had an event. They had some kind of a ladies' breakfast. So I went to that and thinking, I'll meet some more people and that's nice. And so I come in and, they're all there. Well, they're not all there because some were not there. But the ones that were there, they were all there. Anyway, so it was maybe like 25 ladies, something like this. And then, but there were more going there, so I don't know how many exactly. Maybe this could have been half of them or 2/3. So, anyway, I sit down, find a spot and sit down. And then one lady who had talked to me before, and she's kind of more in charge, does things there. And she said, "Oh, come over here. I'll introduce you to some of the other ladies." And I thought, "Oh, perfect. Here we go," right? So she brings me over. And by the way, a lot of them are older. And I mean, some of them are my age, but a lot of them were older. Um, Last stop before heaven type of age. Okay. So anyway, I don't care, right? I don't know. But then, so she brings me up to these ladies and introduces me and says something like, this one here has been coming here for some time now, and she just introduced me. This is so and so, and then she introduced them by their names. This and that, such and such. So okay, then I'm expecting the normal reaction. I never learn, right? I never learn. I expect normal things. That's my problem. So the normal thing would have been, "Oh, well, it's so nice to meet you. Oh, we're so happy to have you here." A handshake, a smile, right? That's the normal thing, right? Something like that. I don't expect them to fall all over me, but something. Some places you go, they'll totally love bomb you for the first time or two, and after that, drop you like a hot potato. So I don't invest a lot in that, but the normal greeting is what you expect. So, that's what I expected, and I would have smiled and shook their hand and nice to meet you and this and that. It's nice to be here, any of that, right? So, this one lady, they're sitting there, and this one lady she says, this is literally what she says. I don't think I had really met her. I might have seen her around, but she says to me, "Oh, well, if you just rush off after the service right away every time and don't stay for the fellowship time after that, then it's going to be hard to get to know you." Yeah, that was what she said. And I'm thinking, I do stay for the fellowship time and the refreshments, after the service. Every time I've been there, that's what I've done. And I told her that. I mean, I just said it straight up. I said, I do that every time. And the lady who introduced me to them, she knew it because she was around them. And she said, yeah, she does. you know. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll tell you the rest of it. But at that point, I was already like, okay, that's she's done. Her goose is cooked, as they say. I'm like, what? That's even if that would have been the case. That's not what you say to somebody. It's rude. It's completely rude. Like just accusing me of something that I don't do, so it's false accusation, and writing it off as to basically why she didn't know me, really pushing it off on me when it was on her, not me, because I was there again. And nobody was holding her up to the wall with interrogation questions of how come you don't know this lady yet? Well, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Of course, nobody was doing that. I didn't expect anybody to know me either. I mean, I just started going there more regular at the time. So, this is how you get to meet people. They introduce you, you say hi, whatever, or just you bump into each other and start talking. That's how it goes. So that's what we were trying to do. And then she comes with that. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not going to be interested in meeting her or hanging around, getting to know her, socializing with her at all at this point, if that's how she is. So, anyway, then that lady said, oh, well, then, and she pulls another excuse out and says something about how she's involved in a certain function after the service, and basically she is the one who doesn't go in there for the fellowship time because she's busy with that other, whatever you want to call it, ministry. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, then there you go. That's your reason, which it's not an excuse, it's a reason. But don't try to shove it off on me and blame me why you don't know me, when it's not my fault. I'm in there every time. And she wasn't in there. And not that it's a fault, it's, something you're busy with, but still, she knows she's occupied with that, and that's why she's not in there, and that's why she didn't meet me. So why couldn't she just say that from the beginning and don't try to blame a person when they're innocent, you know? And because it was a snarky thing to say, it was insulting, if anybody has a pulse, they'll realize that. So then, you know, and nobody was demanding an explanation from her at all. She didn't have to give a reason why she didn't meet me. Because she was busy, and why she's busy, and all these other hoops she has to jump through. All you have to do is say hi, nice to meet you. That's all you have to do, period, right? But she's the one who launched into all of this about all this other all these other reasons, and it's like if she would have just said, oh, I didn't meet you yet, probably because I'm busy with that afterwards and I can't come in here right away, takes me half an hour or something, okay, like I'm not even expecting that. If she would have said that, fine, but all she has to do is say hi, it's nice to meet you. That's all she had to do. But no, tries to already pin all this stuff on me that I'm not guilty of. And that is rude. And this is the kind of thing that, for some reason, I'm so lucky I keep running into these types of people. Oh, my goodness. I could tell stories, but I'm not going to go on and on. But, this is just a more recent example. And then, so, and not, okay, Okay, one more. All right, fine. You got me. You twisted my arm. I'm gonna give you one more, and then I'll give you the other one that I had anyway. So you get a bonus today. Okay, I'll tell you this one first, and then the other one from before. But another one is whenever they have food at these places, and oh, like one place they have a Christmas meal, and another place has a breakfast. And if it's like buffet style potluck or whatever, and you pick what you want, fine. But if it's a set meal, I can never do it because it's always, there'll be something in there that I don't eat. And I'm a highly picky eater, so, and I have a right to be. So I that's what I do. If something like that comes up, then I just skip it, because it's too awkward otherwise. Like nobody understands. If I say, oh, I'll just have dessert, you know, they can't even handle that. So anyway, one event I had gone to where I thought it was buffet style, and it turned out they had a set meal, and it turned out it was the whole thing had something in it I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat this. I couldn't eat that. The side dish was no. Everything was out. So I just, I mean, So when the plate, I didn't realize it till the ones next to me got their plate. Then I'm like, what is that? That looks nasty. Ew. No, I didn't do that, but I'm just like, what on earth is this? It's probably something I can't eat. And then the plate comes. I realize what it is, and all I did was say, oh, I don't eat that, And there are a lot of things, so it could have been anything, fill in the blank, And it was like everybody lost their minds. And that starts off a whole other fireworks show, It's like, yeah, I don't eat that. No, like, deal with it, okay? I'm sure you've heard of different diets before, right? But they lose their minds, and then they want to start arguing about doctrine. It's like, it's not about doctrine, okay? This is not about doctrine. You can eat whatever, except you can't eat blood. That's what the New Testament says, okay? And that's, but I'm much pickier than that. There are all kinds of things I don't eat, all kinds of things. So, and that's why I'm healthy, by the way, very healthy. But, um, um, I have my reasons. It's just health reasons, period. But they want to get into all these other side trips and rabbit trails, and I set them straight. No, no, it's not about this. It's not about that. I know there's liberty. There's also liberty to not eat things, right? You do get that, don't you? I mean, because that's what it is, and that's what I'm doing. You can like it or not, but those are your choices. This is what I'm doing, and that's my choice, and that's what I will do. Adults tend to understand and have that kind of, cerebral capacity to understand, okay? Not anymore. These days, that's all gone out the window. I don't know. This is the world we're in now. It's so bad. But okay, that's it for this. The last one, no, I didn't forget. The last one. This had happened, maybe over a decade ago, so it's pretty old. Oh my goodness. I was at one church, and it was a pretty big church. So yeah, I have my experiences, yes. It's been very interesting, actually, but okay. This big church, and they had smaller groups because of the fact that it was big. They should have smaller groups anyway, but this one was so big. They definitely had to have them for anything fellowship-wise, and they had to have a lot of them because it was so big. So, so I was in one of them, one of these small fellowship groups, and I liked it. And then that one was shutting down because they were older, and they were going to do something else and they were retiring the group. So they were trying to ask around to see which one would be good. And apparently, it wasn't like you can just walk in to any group and join it. It was a little weird. That was another thing. It was a little weird. It was like almost like you had to be vetted or something. Well, I didn't need their help. I could have done this on my own, but um, at the same time, they were looking for another group for me. And so there was this one lady who had another group that uh, didn't live too far away from where this one had been. So, and these were the gossipy lady types, okay? So I imagine they had already just gossiped up a storm about me when there really was nothing to say. I mean, they'll find something. That's how they are, though. Oh boy, I could tell stories. But okay, so anyway, this one lady who ran the other group, or it was, I guess, a couple that ran it, but she was the one. She comes up to me. So after church, I tended to use the restroom and get a drink of water. I drink a lot of water. So I went over to the drinking fountain. I guess I went to the bathroom and then I went to the drinking fountain. I had just gotten there and I was really thirsty. So I was drinking water from the drinking fountain, and she sees me in the lobby, comes up and starts talking to me. And, I had just gotten there. There were people waiting behind me to have a drink too. So I'm thinking like, okay, hello, I am occupied at the moment. Like, I'll be right with you. I don't know, I didn't say anything, but I'm like, if she can't figure this out. Well, I just added to her things she thought she was justified to gossip about regarding me because I just kept drinking. I got to the fountain, I started drinking, I just kept drinking. I thought it's going to take less than a minute. My throat was, dry and scratchy. I was thirsty. I'm not going to talk very well, like even back then, until I get some water in me. I didn't have my water bottle. So I'm drinking water. It won't take that long. Like, trust me, the universe will still be there when I'm done. It's just going to be like under, maybe half a minute. You count to 20, I'll be done, okay? Less than that, even. And so I'm drinking. And yeah, why not do that first and let the next person go and then she can talk to me? No, she had expected me to pop up my head, probably salute her or something while she talks to me because she's so important, right? And I didn't do that. I didn't give her that homage, which I won't really give anyone either. But, there's only one person on the list, and that's the Lord. If you're not Him, then you're going to wait a long time to get anything like that from me because it's not going to happen. Anyway, so I finished my 15-second drinking at the fountain. And in the meantime, she's standing there practically tapping her foot, this huffy attitude. This kind of thing, and says something. Oh, well, it was just one of these sarcastic little comments about how, oh, well, I don't want to bother you when you're drinking. Like that kind of comment, that kind of air and tone about it. And I'm like, well, good. If you would have realized that in a way of grace and tolerance, I would accept it. But since it's sarcastic and snarky, I will not accept it. And that was her attitude. She literally thought, I need to just drop everything because she's speaking to me. And no, lady, you need to wait and take a number and be considerate of other people's needs as well as yours, Because you know how there are other people in the world? And they have needs too and rights just like you. I know it's a shock. There are other people in the universe. Wow. Oh my goodness. Every day I find people who don't notice. Anyway, I was at that point chuckling while I was drinking the water. I mean, I was trying not to, But the things are so funny that I run into. So I'm done. When I'm finally done, after 15 long seconds of drinking my water, I, come over away from the drinking fountain. I come up to her, and that's when, she starts talking to me about her other home fellowship that, like they had told her I was looking for another one, and like she was extending a welcome to me. I almost thought, really? Still? Wow. Hasn't been resigned. So I mean, her attitude was all over the room. So I just, oh, okay, I thanked her, and oh yeah, all right, I'll keep that in mind. Long story short, I never went to that one. I did not want to, was not interested in going to that one. And after her attitude, I thought, if that's an appetizer of what's going to be going on there, no, thank you. I'll be just fine without that. So anyway, I ended up going to a whole different church and other small groups that they had, and that was it. But anyway, I mean, these are the things. And see, somebody might think, oh, well, that's just one little thing. No, 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 no. It's not just one little thing. One, it's a little thing that shouldn't happen. But two, it's not just one or two little things. It's a long list of all kinds of things like this. Okay, it's a scroll a mile long of these kinds of experiences. I'm only sharing a few of them. I'm not, I'm sparing you the long list of these. I just wanted to give an idea, but there's a long list of these that I'm not going over, and all of that is not okay. These are the behaviors that I'm running into, and it's not okay. No matter if it's a million times or once, none of it is okay. And if it really would just be, I bump into some cranky person once in a blue moon, well, okay, it's one thing, it's not good, no, but at least it would be, you know, it's not a terrible situation. But if you run into this all the time, it's not good. And this is what I am running into, and it's bad. So, okay, that is it for the video about issues with fellowship, church cliques, the remnant, the apostasy, finding a biblical church, all this kind of segregation and looking down on people. And oh no, wait a minute, I have the Bible verses I have to do. Oh, just saw that on my note. Good thing I make these notes. But okay. All right, don't run away just yet. It's just two short ones. Okay, so it won't take long. This should still be under an hour. And then I'll do the other one, which will really be short. Okay, so this one is Galatians. Okay, Galatians 3. And it is here. Galatians 3, and I'll read it. I'm not going to change this magnifying number right now. Okay, it's verses, 26 to 29. It says, "For you are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ." So he's saying, if you are in Christ, okay, then you're all one, okay? So 28, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Okay, so he's talking spiritually here. It's not like your gender just dropped from your body or anything crazy, okay? This is just spiritually you're one. There's no difference. You can be, from a Jewish background or a Gentile background, any race, any financial situation here. male or female, whatever it is, you're one in Christ Jesus. So, like, you're not supposed to segregate and separate over these superficial issues. Okay? They're roles for us. That's a different thing, but, 29. And if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. And of course, that gets into the whole other thing, which I've talked about. I don't want to launch into that now, but that's kind of connected to his point up here. There's no more Jew or Gentile in Christ. All right, so that doesn't matter now anymore. So, okay, there's that one. Now the next one is James. And that's the only other one. Almost there. It's sandwiched between. Here we go. Okay, I got it. So James 2, and it's 1 through 9. Okay, so 2 is way down here. Okay, so starting in 1. My brethren, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with partiality. There's that word. For if there should come into your assembly a man with gold rings in fine apparel, and there should also come in a poor man in filthy clothes, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and say to the poor man, you stand there, or sit here at my footstool, have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brethren, has God not chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor man. Do not the rich oppress you and drag you into the courts? Do they not blaspheme that noble name by which you are called? If you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well. But if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Okay, so there it is, and it goes on. It just gets into how we're not under the law, but all that stuff. But anyway, you can read the rest of that. But that's the point he's making. And then one other thing, I've seen a lot of this too, is how Jesus said they want the best seats in the synagogues because they think they're so important, and it's religious leaders and people like that. Well, they have a whole hierarchy in a lot of these churches, and it's based on these worldly standards, and those are the ones that are elevated to the best seats, and oh yes, there's stories about seating. Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, okay, I might have shared this is it, this is the last one. But they have their special seating arrangements, and they're not supposed to. Look, if a church has seats with names on, okay, this is like reserved for that person, it is that kind of thing, but at least they're being honest about it, okay? They have it reserved, at least people would know, okay? But if you come in and there are no seating charts, there's no labeling of seats, any seat is available to anyone. It's first come, first serve. Sometimes they'll have a row of seats blocked off by those cords that they hang and on the hooks, and it connects, and like in theaters, that kind of thing. There's a reason maybe they have people who need to be close to the front because they're going to do something. It has to be fast. I don't know. Okay, it's another issue. But let's just say that there isn't anything, and most of them are like that. There's nothing. It's first come, first serve. You walk in the door first, you can pick any seat you want in that whole church. Okay, and I've done that, and I would tend to be more in the front, one of the front row types. So I'd be up there early, front row. I was always that kind of student. So it's what I do. So I was there. I don't like the very front, but in church, because it's kind of like, I don't know. I like a little something to lean on. But so I'll sit in the second row or the third row. And, um, I come in, sit there, and there's already one lady. She, yeah, you can mark your word there. That'll be there, right? And, they pretend to be nice. Oh, what's your name? Shake your hand. Oh, it's so nice you're here. Next thing out of their mouth is some kind of comment about why are you sitting there, like, oh, you're sitting there, something along those lines. Yeah, like, you can see that, right? I mean, I don't know. She started this whole, like, a bee into a hornet's nest or something of a drama. I'm like, well, you don't like it. Oh, well, I mean, if they have rules, they need to say that. But I walked in, nobody said anything. I sat here I am, like, deal with it. I even have a physical thing where I can't just get up and move all the time. And so once I sit plop, that's where I'm going to be till it's over. So anyway, oh my goodness, the things I ran into. There was one, okay, this one takes the cake. I got to share this one. It was a large church. Okay, same thing. I come there early. You know how it is, these places, everybody's either right at the last minute or they're late, shuffling by you when it's already happening. Okay, well, I was early, of course, so I come in and I sit, and it was near the front, but again, maybe the third row, in the middle of the third row. The reason I had to calculate this, let me tell you this one, strategically, because I sit in the middle of it, of the row, because it never fails. If I sit more to one end or the other, the late stragglers come straggling in, and they want you to move over for them. And if, they come in from that end, then you're sitting there, they want you to move towards the middle. If they come in from the other end, you're over there, sure enough, that's how it works, and then they want you to move away more towards the middle. So after a couple of times I wisened up, I thought, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to move to the middle right away. And I'm not moving from there, like I said. So I moved to the middle, third row, pretty much, depending, somewhere along the first few rows and in the middle. That became the spot then. So there I am. I was maybe 15 minutes early, and I pick my spot early for a reason, and I get comfortable, look at the handouts, and sitting there, little by little, people start filtering in. So here I am, and you're gonna die laughing on this one. A lady comes in, okay, younger than me, by the way, and comes up to where I'm sitting. And now keep in mind, the place is still pretty empty over in that section. It's pretty empty. Like, they had sectioned off these. It was like, okay, I don't have my whiteboard, but like there was a front section with rows, and then there were sections off to the side. They had different ones like that with rows. So I was on one of the side sections. Most of the place was empty. There were a few people coming at that point in time. And my area there was nobody around me at all. It was pretty empty. Okay, it comes up to time when they were at 9 o'clock. I think it was 9 they started. So right about 9, a few minutes before 9, this woman comes in. comes up to me looking kind of huffy and irritated, younger than me, and expects me to move over for her. Yeah, yeah, that's how bad it is, you know. Of course I didn't, you know, nobody's fool. So I'm sitting there, and she says something first, like something about how, oh, she's the seat saver. I guess, you know, this was her designated job among her clique, right? And she comes in and she wanted to reserve whole rows of seats for her little social group, basically her little clique. And that's why she expected me to move. So she could, you know, maybe I'm supposed to go to the end of the row now, right? So she can have all these people in the rows sitting next to each other. Well, isn't that nice? You know, and I'm just chopped liver that can move over and fall off the whole row, I suppose. So I just looked at her like, are you crazy? So I'm sitting there, I'm like looking at her like, have you lost your marbles? You know? So I look at her and I'm like, well, I'm not moving. I got here first. You know, I mean, I come early enough. I get that spot. And I'm like, I got here 20 minutes ago because I'm the seat saver too. And I've reserved this spot for me. It's literally true, you know. And oh, she about fell over and died and went on about, oh, all these people. Oh, and she's just, and I'm like, well, you know what? That's too bad. If you wanted to do that, you needed to come here early enough to reserve those seats for all those people. They don't have entitlement to that either. If they want a seat, they need to get there, you know what's over here, and reserve their own seat for themselves because you're not even authorized to reserve a seat for anyone else. You know, that is not a thing, okay? So they're not entitled to have you do that for them and hold a seat away from somebody who is already here. They might walk in the door right now. It's first come, first served, and they have the claim to it, not these people you're quote unquote holding it for, you know. So I told her, well, there's plenty of room. Just go find another row. Like, you know, they're not even here yet. That's like your problem, not mine, basically, you know. So, yeah, I mean, they want the seat. They need to come and claim it themselves. So, it was ridiculous. And she really put up a hot bunch of huffy steam over it, you know. And I just looked at her and laughed. It's so funny thinking about it now. I'm laughing, and I know I'm over an hour. I'm almost done. So I couldn't believe it. You know, I thought the audacity of these people. You know, then this little group comes in. I don't know, might have been 6 people, and they're late. To top it off, well, she had reserved a couple of rows back. There, you know, I don't know. Maybe she wanted her distance at that point, so she went like 2 rows behind me. They all file in back there, and you can just feel the steam emanating from them. Like, oh, she didn't want to move. Oh no, you know this. And I remember they said something among themselves, like along those lines. It's like, you got that right. I'm not moving. I mean, talk about hierarchies. See what I mean? Special seats in the synagogues. I mean, this was their behavior. And it's like, no, I got here first, early. I reserved a seat for me. Um, you know, you can reserve your own seat by getting there and sitting in it. That's how it works, you know, and you don't really have a right to reserve more seats for more people who aren't here yet. It's one thing if they put their bag on a chair next to them for somebody and a coat on the next one. A couple of seats is one thing, but not a whole row, you know. And that they would expect somebody who was already there early to move over for them who are late or barely filing in on time. I mean, that's absurd, you know. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Not happening. You know, you can learn your lesson and plan accordingly next time, but I'm not moving. That's all I know. But these are the attitudes I've encountered. They're special seatings. They're special cliques. They're special hierarchies. They're elevated status that they only have in their minds, and they think they're so special and so entitled, and I taught them something, so I feel good about that. But anyway, it's the same thing, same stuff Jesus complained about. They walk around and think they're entitled to the best spots at the tables and fancy titles, and they're all wrong. So okay, there, that's it. I'm really done. I better stop the video before I think of something else I have to say. Okay, all right, I'll be back in a minute.